Hello and welcome. Welcome to tonight's live. It's eerily quiet in here, so I'm going to turn my fan on. If it's a little too loud, let me know and I'll turn it off though. So welcome in everybody. Welcome on in. I'm here by myself right now, so it's like very quiet. Oh, there's the dog. I knew if I left the door open she'd come walking in. There she goes. Get in your seat. There's my co-host. Okay, she's good now. She's good. She just made a snoring sound. That's funny. She'll be snoring here in a few minutes and I'll be laughing at her because I can't help but to laugh when she's behind me snoring like a full-grown man. It's pretty funny. So thank you, Parker, for gifting a membership. And look at that, Alicia. It's your lucky day. And you're going to Japan. I saw that you put that in the chat yesterday, and I meant to say something when I came on the live, and it slipped my mind. And then so when I saw it today, I was like, oh, yeah, you're going to Japan. That's exciting. I've never been there. I think Vincent has been, I think he said that he went when he was younger. His mom is from there. So, and her sisters, I believe her sisters still live over there. And I think she has a brother. I think maybe a sister, two sisters and a brother. So I think that's what it is. I'm learning with Vincent because he doesn't even know how many aunts and uncles he has. I feel like so. So welcome on in, everybody. Hey, Parker. Hey, Jan. Hey, Alicia. Mary Beth got a new bike today. That's exciting. Hey, Cheryl. Have you ridden it yet? Are you waiting to ride it? Is the weather good where you're at so that you can ride it? Hey, Pickle Me Elmo. Hey, Steve. Welcome on in, everybody. It's good to see you guys. TGIF. That's right, Catherine. I was going to put something about that in my title or like in my thumbnail, but I couldn't because I was trying to think of something other than like true crime updates, but I couldn't think of anything cool to go like TGIF or Friday. Like I was trying to think of something that would go together, but so I just stuck it with what we usually do. If we cover more than one case, we'll do like true crime updates. So, hey, Jan, welcome in. Another Jan. Or is it Jane? It's Jane, not Jan. It's Jane. I said that wrong. I'm sorry, Jane. I was like, Jan. just skipped right over that, didn't I? Didn't even put the E on there. Didn't make that, wasn't correct on that one. So thank you guys all for being here tonight. I appreciate you guys so much. If you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, it does go a long way. It really does. Hey, Brandywine, welcome in. So welcome on in, guys. I was right before the live, I was just kind of looking around to see if there was any more updates to either of the cases that we're going to cover tonight. And I don't believe that there is. So we can go ahead and get on with tonight's live. I'm going to put in the chat here. I'm going to put our membership link if you would like to join our membership. We'd love to have you. And if you're watching on a replay, hashtag TitaniumBuilt. That way I know that you're watching it. Sometimes when you hashtag replay, it'll put your comment into a different box, like a held for review, which is so stupid because they're the nicest comments, really. But it's kind of funny. So I'm trying to figure out if maybe if we hashtag my name, if it'll stop doing that. So I'm hoping anyway. Hi, Therese. Welcome in. So let me get some stuff up for you guys because I didn't pull anything up. It's all still on the computer screen there. So we're going to go over a couple of different cases tonight. I wanted to go over so many different updates. There's so many, I feel like, but we would be here till tomorrow night because I just feel like we're covering a lot of cases on the channel. So tonight, I've been kind of doing like a TV guide kind of for you guys. Like I'll tell you in advance, like what the next live will most likely be on, even if I don't, have my life scheduled or whatever early in the afternoon, I'm always going to be here. Sometimes I get busy with like household stuff. That's really what it is. It's household cleaning and taking care of the dogs. So tomorrow night, I think we're going to hit up Charlotte though, because Charlotte Cena, there are some more, there's some more stuff coming out about the guy that kidnapped her. And I feel like we've been covering that case, so we should keep covering it, of course. So tonight we're going to concentrate, and then tomorrow I think I'm going to do like two. Either it's going to be either tomorrow or Sunday, we're going to do two again. And then on one of the other days, we'll do Idaho because I have a podcast for you guys to listen to. But for tonight's live, we are going to do Crystal Rogers and Suzanne Morphew because we've been covering those two cases on the channel. And there's some really good updates, some very like what updates. So I wanted to bring those to you guys tonight. So welcome in Doodlebug and Holly and Olivia and Sarah and PKC. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. Just holler at me if I missed anybody. And let me grab my drink real quick over here. Get myself ready to read because I wanted to read something to you for you guys real quick. Okay. And I have my phone here so I can see if Vincent needs to get a hold of me for anything. I'm like, got it ready. Or if anybody tries to break into the apartment like they did the other day. Still don't know who did that. I still don't know who tried to come into my apartment the other day, but if we figure it out, I'm going to make sure I ask her about it. So let me go ahead and get back to my notes because I'll forget what we're going over or how to go over it. So like I said, we're going to start tonight. We're going to do Suzanne Morphew and Crystal Rogers case. We're going to start with Crystal Rogers though. So I'm sure that most of you guys know about the Crystal Rogers case, but in case you guys need like a backstory or, you guys aren't familiar, she disappeared from her home in Barstown, Kentucky on July 3rd, 2015. Brooks Houck, who was her boyfriend at the time, they had a child together. He said that he went to bed that night and she was still on her phone playing a phone game, a game on her phone. And when he woke up the next day, she was gone. 2 days later, her car was found on the Bluegrass Parkway with her phone, keys, and her diaper bag within the car. And I believe the car was unlocked. Rogers' family, Crystal Rogers' family, has believed this whole time that Brooks was somehow involved in the disappearance and, death of their daughter. And so for 8 years, her mother has had zero justice. And then it gets worse. I mean, if it could get worse than losing your child and then your husband, I think that just takes tops the cake. But she ended up 2016, Crystal Rogers' father was out hunting with his grandson and was fatally shot. And so that's all we really knew after Tommy, Ballard was killed, and he was the forefront of, trying to get justice for his daughter, trying to find his daughter. I think that he was a little too close to something, and that's what got him killed. I really believe that. But there's huge developments in this case. I never thought we would actually, I thought Crystal Rogers' case would get solved, but I never really thought Tommy Ballard's case was going to get solved. I really didn't. Like, my mind's getting blown from every which way. So thank you, Jan. She gave me $5 for the doggy treats. Oh, thank you. You're working them for the treats tonight, Mia. She's sleeping already. It's funny. She'll be wondering too. If there's like a day that I don't have treats in her treat thing, she'll be like, Jan gave you money for treats. She'll give me that look. Hey, Crime Story Diva, welcome in. Oh, you do? Wow. I think I'm like 3 hours from there because Vincent was like, well, we live near Kentucky. I love his like personality with me with true crime now. He's really getting into it. And I was like, yeah, we're like 3 hours away. And he's like, oh, really? So maybe we'll make a little trip down there. I was going to go over this article, though. I believe this is Lexington Herald. So it's one of their local papers. And this came out today. So in the picture here, this is Tammy, or Sherry, I'm sorry, Sherry Ballard. This is Crystal's mom. And I believe that's Crystal's sister beside her, if I'm not mistaken. It looks just like her. It looks like Crystal a lot. I mean. Oh, thank you, Parker. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. That's so sweet. Now I'll get Rocky treats with that. The cat. He better get in here and work for his, though. He's sleeping out there. Thank you guys so much. So it says here, 8 years after he was named the primary suspect in Crystal Rogers' disappearance, the Barstown man, I think I say Barstown wrong, but Barstown man accused of murdering the mother of 5 pleaded not guilty in criminal court Thursday afternoon. Brooks Houck, 41, was arrested on September 27th after an indictment was handed down by a Nelson County Circuit Court grand jury charging him with murder and evidence tampering in the disappearance of Rogers, his former girlfriend. Thursday marked his first court appearance in the case. If you guys didn't get to watch the court appearance, the audio is just really bad. So I got some news clips for us to listen to where the audio and the visual doesn't look as bad. Hopefully they get that fixed before trial. Houck attended the hearing virtually from the Hardin County Detention Center, where he is being held on $10 million. His attorney, Brian Butler of Louisville, entered the not guilty plea on Houck's behalf. What's up with people not being able to plead guilt? Did he not speak on his behalf? Because I didn't. I'm gonna have to watch that whole thing probably. But the audio I couldn't hear, so I was like, I can't handle it. But I can't handle when I can't hear. But I'm just wondering if he stood silent or if they're just wording it like, because it says that his attorney entered a not guilty plea. Really, Doodlebug? We might be closer than we know. Oh, thanks, Aries. You're so sweet. Thank you. I hope you're doing okay. Yeah, let me know if you guys know that too, because I wonder if he pled not guilty or if he just stood silent. But her whole family was taken up half the gallery, which was awesome. Nelson Circuit Judge Charles Sims III did not set a trial date for the case. Butler said he could not be prepared for a summer 2024 trial, while prosecutor Shane Young said they could be ready. Several co-counsels for Houck and the prosecution were present during the hearing. Young is so far behind of me because he has been investigating the case and presented it to a grand jury, said Butler. And then there he is, pictured there in his white t-shirt. I'm not sure why they didn't make him put his overshirt over, his prison, or his jail, blues or whatever they call them, jail, whatever color you're wearing. Because normally you can't go out of your cell wearing a white t-shirt. You have to put on your, the scrub top. That's what they look like, scrubs. But the scrub top, you always have to have that on so that people they know that you're an inmate and you're not just walking around all willy-nilly. So, and that was crazy. Well, welcome, Riddler. Thanks for becoming a member. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, welcome in. I haven't seen you in a while. It's been a little while. Hope you're doing good. So Houck's next court date, a pretrial conference, was set for February 8th, 2024. The amount of discovery in this case is over a terabyte. So I guess that's not like a whole lot. I mean, I don't know. Are we comparing it to Idaho? Because Idaho is 51 terabytes. But, the prosecution provided Butler and co-counsel over 500 gigabytes of discovery. Evidence includes video and audio recordings and paper documents that the prosecution is in the process of redacting. Many members of the Rogers family showed up to Thursday's hearing, occupying half of the audience gallery. And you can see them there, they're all oh, it's so sad. The looks on their faces, the ones that are looking this way, they just look so sad. But I bet at the same time, it's such a, when they were sitting and they heard what you'll hear tonight, if you haven't heard about what's going on in this case recently, when they heard that they may have the murder weapon that killed Crystal's father, Sherry's husband, and it is tied back to Nick Houck, Brooks's brother. I just cannot imagine what the family was thinking in that moment. I probably would have screamed if I was her. Just so much emotion. I probably would have screamed, not even realizing that I was screaming. It's just, that's a lot. Butler filed a motion for a bond reduction last week. He requested that a judge consider lowering his bond from $10 million to $500,000. That's a big difference. And cited the current bond was excessive and punitive. I have practiced law for 28 years and I have never heard of a bond coming close to this. Young has never asked for a $10 million bond in a previous case, he said, and added that some jurors who heard the grand jury testimony thought Houck's bond should be doubled. So the people that heard the grand jury, they said double it to 20 million. Like, they must have some good evidence. Young, it says a $500,000 bond was too low for someone who's a multimillionaire, Young said. A $10 million bond was fair. Judge Sims ultimately did not address Houck's bond, keeping it at $10 million. Houck's risk of not appearing for a future court date was classified as low, according to a pretrial service report. He has 1 point on his record for not appearing at a 2012 traffic case hearing. The appearance probability for Houck is 87%, with the likelihood of him remaining arrest-free is 96%, according to the report. The report also said Houck is not likely to get into trouble while the case is pending. How can somebody say that? I mean, I wonder where they're getting the reports. I mean, these are probably good reports. I'm not going to say they're not, but I wanted someone to do a report on me, not about arrest or nothing, but what am I the most likely to do? Like, that's what they're like. He's most likely not to do this, most likely to do this. It's crazy. Parker, it does. Thank you for the $2 super sticker. It really does. She said this case has a lot of twists and turns. Yeah, right when you think you know what's going on in this case, something else happens. But it's getting really good. It's been 8 years. And I've been following it. There's only a few cases that really, when they stick with you, like they just stick with you. You guys know. I mean, you guys are here, and you just like, I never had YouTube. I didn't know YouTube really was a thing. So I would always check like mainstream media, and there was never any updates in this case. And so for 8 years, there was just nothing. And so me and Vincent were actually going to the store the other day, and I saw it on Twitter. And I like almost threw my phone down on the ground. I was like freaking out. I was so excited for this case to like finally have a little bit of a resolution. And then Suzanne Morphew, that was another one. I about threw my phone down for that one too. I was like, what is going on? It was a good week for, in true crime. Now, if we can just find Crystal, I don't know if that would be possible with what Brooks is probably capable of doing though. Due to intense media coverage of the case, Butler said his client has known he could be arrested at any time, yet remained in Nelson County, demonstrating he will not run. This isn't as simple as saying he isn't a flight risk. He hasn't fled from anything before, but he has known forever that people are saying bad things about him. But here he stayed. Well, I think it's because he had ties to the community, and that's how he got his business and stuff. He had a business. He's a business owner. In the motion, Butler said Houck had been cooperative with law enforcement since the investigation began, and that his character had been assassinated by media coverage of the investigation. He described Houck as a family man, a successful business owner with no prior criminal convictions on his record. He has strong ties to the community, as anyone can have. I thought he got arrested for like a DUI or something. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but I thought he did get arrested like years back. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Could be. Houck family accused of misconduct. So during the arraignment, Young alleged members of Houck's family recorded the grand jury proceedings, which is strictly prohibited. Now, why the hell was Houck's family allowed into the grand jury proceedings is my question. I didn't know. I thought that grand juries were secret. Or I know it's different states, so I'm learning everything from Idaho, but I thought that grand jury proceedings were just that. They were like secret grand juries. So how's his people getting in there to record? This reminds me of like Alec Murdaugh family. Grand jury. Oh, we're going to read about it right now. Grand jury proceedings are done in secret. The private sessions only include the 12 random selected jurors, the Commonwealth attorney, witnesses, and a stenographer. Judges or members of the defense team are not present for testimony or deliberations. Yeah, so how did it? Yeah, I just said that, and they declined to talk about it. So this is a little bit about Brooks. Houck was named the sole suspect in 2015. Rogers is presumed to be dead, and her body has not been found. Investigators believe Houck was the last person to see Rogers alive on July 3rd or 4th, 2015. She was reported missing by her mother on July 5th, 2015. Since the beginning, Houck has maintained his innocence as the few public comments he's made. Houck is a Barstow native and a prominent business owner in the area. He runs 3 separate construction companies: Houck Rentals, Select Quality Homes, and Central Kentucky Rentals, LLC. Not anymore. Before Houck's indictment, 32-year-old Joseph Lawson was arrested in connection to Rogers' case. According to Lawson's indictment, he was charged with criminal conspiracy to commit murder and complicity to tampering with physical evidence. The Herald letter requested investigative documents for Lawson's case from the FBI through an open records request. The FBI cited Lawson as a third-party individual and could neither confirm nor deny that such documents exist. The mere acknowledgement of the existence of FBI records on third-party individuals could be reasonably expected to constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Michael Seidel, the section chief of the Information Management Division, wrote in a letter of response. Oh, that was all of it. So that's what they have to say about that. Now, you'll hear in the next video, what they did was the officers, sneaky dogs, they decided to, I don't know how they figure it out. We'll find out, when the court documents come out, or maybe you guys know, but the officers did an undercover sting operation, and they knew that Nick Houck was selling a gun that was the same caliber that shot Tommy Ballard, but Nick Houck was selling this gun under an alias name, under a different name. So the officers went undercover. They bought the gun, sneaky dogs, and now they have it for ballistics. Like, why would you sell the gun if that's the gun that did this? You're an ex-officer. Now, that's what I'm going to say. Now, criminals are kind of dumb. They really are. They really are. They're like, sure, we're just going to get rid of the weapon. And I don't know. We don't know how Crystal died. But if there's a way that they find her and then this gun it's connected to both, that would just be amazing for their family. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video here. It just is going to tell you about the possible links to, Crystal's dad's murder. Whenever I kind of what I went over, about Nick Houck, Brooks's brother. And if you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, it really helps. And thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
All my heart and soul that there is going to be an arrest and there will be justice for my family.
Crystal Marie Rogers was a 35-year-old mother of 5 when she was last seen on July 3rd, 2015. 2 days later, on July 5th, Rogers' mother reported her missing. The same day she was reported missing, her red Chevy Impala was found abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire and keys in the ignition and a diaper bag still in the car. Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, thinks that the car was staged.
I think they placed my daughter's car on that BG. I have never, ever thought that my daughter was in that car.
In the weeks after her disappearance, investigators focused on Rogers' longtime boyfriend, Brooks Houck. According to police, he was the last person to see Rogers alive.
So you go to bed, she stays up. What's she doing?
She's just on her phone playing. I don't know what game, but she normally plays a game.
Right.
She's got several of them on there, but I don't know which one.
Do you know what time Eli came to bed, or she put him into bed?
I don't know.
And so when you wake up, he's there, but Crystal's not.
She's not.
Multiple searches of Houck's home and family farm turned up no connection to her disappearance. But just a few months after Crystal vanished, the Nelson County Sheriff's Office named Houck the main suspect in the case. Houck denied any involvement for more than 8 years until he was indicted and arrested by the FBI and Kentucky State Police. This came just weeks after Joseph Lawson was arrested for conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence in the case. However, Sherry Ballard has never doubted Brooks Houck was connected to her daughter's disappearance.
I believe 100% in my heart that Brooks Houck is responsible, and that's my opinion.
Big day in court. Brooks Houck in court. They had a hearing. Some people were remote, but the prosecutor, wow. The prosecutor revealing some information in court today no one was expecting. It's all related to the other murder, the murder of Crystal's dad, Tommy Ballard. Let's take a listen.
I will tell you, Your Honor, we're investigating the murder of Tommy Ballard that could potentially be related to this case. We are waiting for testing to come back on the firearm we believe was used to murder Tommy Ballard, a firearm that we purchased from Nicholas Houck, who was using a fake name when he sold the rifle. We know it's the same caliber. There's 5 criteria that they're looking at, and so far it's matched 4 of the 5 criteria.
Wow. This is huge. Let's bring in our think tank, Lori Murray, Kirk Nermy, Brian Silber, still with us. Logic tells you the 2 murders are connected, Kirk, but now they're saying that they were able to get their hands on what they believe was the murder weapon for Crystal's father, purchased from Brooks Houck's brother, former police officer.
Right. I mean, it's starting to tie the whole thing together. We don't have a lot of information as it relates to Crystal, but we see this gun that's involved. Could this gun be involved in the murder of Crystal as well? Is there evidence to support that? We don't know that yet, but we also know that Mr. Lawson, who was involved, gave some information that motivated this arrest after 8 years. So something significant changed after that 8-year period that made prosecutors confident enough to feel to bring this indictment. And I think now we're starting to see that the evidence is pretty strong. The FBI is starting to put the pieces together after all this time.
Yeah. Brian Silber, I look at this case, and there was the interview that he did with investigators, and he was acting kind of strange, kind of like a reality show person who thinks that they can act. That's the vibe. That's just the vibe I got from him. But the fact, if they can tie the murder weapon that was used to kill her father to his brother, I mean, you're putting together a large conspiracy here in what happened to Crystal and her dad, and who's responsible here.
Well, this is where the role of discovery for the defense in any case plays a major component because they need to see what the government has. I'm hearing allegations in the courtroom, but I'm not seeing evidence yet. What is the connection? What were the 4 of the 5 criteria he was referencing? Are they strong? Are they weak? Are they credible? These are all things that the defense is going to have to look at. We all want to see a bigger picture and big connections. It makes for an interesting case, but we got to be grounded in reality. And that's what discovery is for. And those grounds will be founded in evidence. Now,
We spoke about Brooks Houck was in court, and they're talking about his brother, Nicholas, the former police officer connected to this gun. Take a listen to what the prosecutor had to say about what the Houck family members were doing when they were testifying in front of the grand jury.
The defendant speaks in his motion about his loving support of his family. I completely agree. They've been supportive. In this matter, the defendant's sister, Rhonda McEvoy Houck, brother, Nicholas Houck, mother, Rosemary Houck, brother-in-law, Alex McEvoy, and Rosemary Houck's live-in boyfriend, Larry Monk, all recorded, secretly brought in recorders and recorded the grand jury. I've been practicing here, Your Honor, for 25 years in this state, and I have yet, ever, heard of anyone recording a grand jury.
Lori Murray, how about that? I mean, we dealt with the Murdochs down there. Now we're dealing with the Houcks out in Kentucky. Like, they're recording the grand jury proceedings secretly.
I think they're going to get joint cells. Maybe they can like have, adjoining rooms like at the Motel 6. But what baffles me is that this all comes out.
She said adjoining rooms. Could you imagine those two together? Alec Berdoff and Brooks Houck? Oh my lordy. That would be like putting Letitia and Lori in a cell together.
During a bond reduction motion hearing. This was an explosive hearing that nobody really expected. And I also read that the grandmother in this case pled the fifth when she testified in front of the grand jury. They all know something, and they're all protecting him, and it's baffling to me. And they try to get their story together, and these grand jury proceedings are always secret. You know that, I know that, every attorney knows that, and they knew that. That's why they recorded it, so that they could make sure that their stories fit and matched, and nobody gave up one or the other. They're all in on it, and they're all going to go to jail.
Okay, and do we have our guest joining us? In just a second. Okay. Kirk Nurmi, quickly to you. Have you in your career ever heard of grand jury proceedings being secretly recorded?
No, I was amazed. It's such a bombshell, and it's really demonstrative of guilt. We're starting to tie up a story here of a family cover-up. Like you said, just like the Murdochs, just a different state, same kind of family dynamic, if you will.
Doing anything to protect their family. Okay, we've got a special guest joining us by phone tonight from Scripps News Lexington reporter Lee Searcy, who was in the courtroom for Brooks Houck's hearing today. Lee, great to speak with you tonight. What can you tell us about that courtroom today and who was there?
Well, of course, Sherry Ballard, Crystal Rogers' mother, was there. Her grandparents were there. Her sister and her Crystal Rogers' daughter was there. And sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom, Brooks Houck's mother, Rosemary, who was there with a male friend. Someone told me that may have been her boyfriend. But the courtroom was packed on the Rogers side of the courtroom, and we were anticipating this, expecting this to be just a typical arraignment. You waive arraignment and you enter a not guilty plea on your client's behalf. And then we did know that there would be discussion about lowering the bond, but nobody anticipated what came out in court today.
Unbelievable. Did you have an opportunity to speak to anyone there?
I did. I spoke to Till Ballard, Crystal's grandfather, and this is a happy time for them. Kind of mixed emotions, but they have waited for this day to see Brooks in court. And they were very emotional, as you can imagine. And I tried to talk to Rosemary Houck on the way out after court, but she didn't have much to say. If you want to roll that footage, you can see what happened.
Are your sons involved in the murder of Tommy Ballard or Crystal? Do you have anything at all to say? Are you sorry for anything?
Unreal. So now, Lee, it seems like you've got allegations that the family's recording everything, that the murder of Tommy Ballard, the weapon that was used, the firearm that was used, may be connected to Brooks' brother. I mean, it seems like the whole family may end up as part of this case.
I have heard for about 8 years now, especially from those close to the Ballard family, the Rogers families, that they think this could be a so-called family affair. They've searched the grandparents, the mother's farm. They've searched Nick Houck, Brooks' brother's home. Obviously, they've searched Brooks' house. And, it's really looking like that could be a possibility. I mean, when they said that the brother of Brooks reportedly sold a gun used to kill Tommy Ballard, I mean, those of us, all the media, we were all sitting in the jury section, and we all just kind of looked at each other and went, wow, did we just hear that correctly? And Nick Houck, by the way, he wasn't in court. But I hear that he has been going about his business, kind of going to town, running errands, and but he was not in court today. I looked for him.
What a day in Kentucky. Lee Searcy, Scripps News, Lexington. Thank you so much for all that reporting. I'm sure we'll be speaking again because this case has turned out to be something. And what developments today. Thank you so much.
So they think it could be a family affair now, which they kind of always, I think, thought that. I think they maybe Sherry didn't know if Nick was involved, but she always knew that Brooks was involved with her daughter's murder. And I know that she thought Brooks was involved in her husband's death as well. But now they're bringing in the whole family. I mean, even grandma's being brought in. They're recording. I don't know how they're even getting inside of a secret grand jury to record it. Unless they know somebody in there that's doing like the court work. And I don't know. We're gonna have to dig into that one a little more. That one I don't know. I just don't know how they would get that. So I wanted to show you this other video because maybe they'll tell us here because this one came out a little bit later and I didn't get a chance to watch this one. I got a chance to watch the first one. So let me play this one here. Maybe we'll get some more answers. But yeah, so they're doing the secret grand jury. Nick Houck, I guess there's 5 different ways for comparison for gun match a gun or a bullet to a gun, I'm assuming. And 4 of those 5 criterias have been met for that to be the gun that shot Tommy Ballard. That is huge. And then for Nick to have been the one to have sold it, you're not going to, I mean, they're going to have him on video selling that gun for sure. And audio and all of that. I can't wait to hear that.
In the 2015 disappearance of Crystal Rogers, made his first appearance in court today and pled not guilty.
Brooks Houck, who appeared virtually from jail, is being held on, listen to this, $10 million bond. His attorneys asked for a reduction, not surprisingly, claiming the amount is excessive and punitive. They suggested $500,000 bond and a GPS monitor. That would be enough to ensure Houck's return to court.
But prosecutors say Houck is a multi-millionaire with vast resources. The judge will rule on that request at a later date.
Prosecutors also dropped this bombshell in court, saying they have the gun they believe was used to kill Tommy Ballard, and that is Crystal Rogers' father, and that happened the year after Rogers went missing. They say they purchased it from Brooks Houck's brother, Nick. Now, Nick was a former police chief who was using a fake name. Nick Houck was fired from the Bardstown Police Department for interfering in the Rogers case. Here's a portion of today's hearing.
Certainly, one of the things the court is concerned about in this case is obviously a bond that's reasonable to assure his appearance, but also the safety of any witnesses. Is the Commonwealth wanting to go anywhere with any other investigations that are going on in regard to this matter?
Yes, we are. I will tell you, Your Honor, we're investigating the murder of Tommy Ballard that could potentially be related to this case. We are waiting for testing to come back on the firearm we believe was used to murder Tommy Ballard, a firearm that we purchased from Nicholas Houck, who was using a fake name when he sold the rifle. We know it's the same caliber. There's 5 criteria that they're looking at, and so far it's matched 4 of the 5 criteria. And then we would ask if Your Honor does grant the bond, and I'll provide a list of witnesses to the court as well as the defense counsel, but we would ask for GPS monitoring. We would ask for no contact with the Ballard family, and we would ask for no contact by the Houck family. I'm not talking about defense counsel or any investigators that have of any witness in this matter.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I'll give you one last opportunity here.
I promise I'm going to ask the ping pong back and forth. Start with the easiest things that I do not object to a no contact order between Mr. Houck and the Ballard family. If that's standard, that's appropriate. I'm sure neither side wants to have contact.
All right, still with us, trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. Rich, this is an interesting one because, again, a $10 million bond sounds like a lot. When I looked through the criteria for bond there, it's danger to the community, flight risk. It doesn't also say anything about the amount of money the person has, right? There's a number of factors. I don't know if that should or should not be considered. Certainly, you want it to be enough to give incentive for this person to come back, and $10 million is a lot. What I thought was very effective by the defense, they named a number of cases, similar type crimes, where the most bail asked for by the court in counties all around and in Bardstown was $3 million. This is 3 times that. Your thoughts on their arguments?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Michael, and you're exactly right. What are the 2 things you look at in a bond determination? You look, is there a safety risk and is there a flight risk? So now this safety risk comes up because we have this bombshell of the death of the father that may be linked. And so there's an implication that there could be some sort of safety risk if this person is out free and can contact the family, and there's a problem there, and there's a flight risk because of resources. I don't know if one of the possibilities is just to say no bond. I mean, at some point you make the number so astronomically high, you might as well just say you're not permitting bond.
Yeah, and so I would agree with you, but we all know you can't. There's some cases in which you're not allowed to say no bond as a judge.
You have a constitutional right.
Exactly, you have a constitutional right for bond, and so $10 million, though, I would agree is a little excessive, but he does have a lot of resources, allegedly. All right, stay with us. When we come back, more jaw-dropping details from Brooks Houck's bond hearing. This time, allegations about how his family behaved during the grand jury proceedings. Stay tuned.
Of Crystal development, disappearance of Crystal Reisinger. We'll bring you the latest development.
I heard Crystal, and I didn't know it was a
The
different
suspect
Crystal.
in the 2015 disappearance of Crystal Rogers pled not guilty today at a bond hearing that revealed new details in this case. The judge is taking time to review Brooks Houck's request for a reduction in his $10 million bond. His attorneys have asked for it to be reduced to $500,000 and say he will also agree to wear an ankle monitor.
But prosecutors also dropped a few bombshells today, saying they believe they have the gun used to kill Rogers' father, Tommy Ballard. Now, he was shot by a sniper the year after his daughter went missing in 2015. Prosecutors are also accusing Houck's family of recording jurors during the grand jury proceedings. Now, here's a portion that talks about that during today's hearing.
The Commonwealth is asking this court to consider the defendant and his family's behavior during the grand jury proceedings in this matter. The defendant speaks in his motion about his loving support of his family. I completely agree. They've been supportive. This court and defense counsel are well aware of the sanctity of grand jury proceedings. It's so important the Kentucky Supreme Court gave it its own rule. Grand jury proceedings are secret. In this matter, the defendant's sister, Rhonda McEvoy Houck, brother, Nicholas Houck, mother, Rosemary Houck, brother-in-law, Alex McEvoy, and Rosemary Houck's live-in boyfriend, Larry Mott, all recorded, secretly brought in recorders and recorded the grand jury. I've been practicing here, Your Honor, for 25 years in this state, and I've yet, ever heard of anyone recording a grand jury. I've got copies of the grand jury proceedings as it relates to the one Mr. Houck is involved in. And I will tell Your Honor that I also have a transcript, which I provided to Mr. Butler. I will tell you, this is an in-house transcript. I'm not asking Your Honor to rely on the transcript. The reason why I'm tendering it is because it has times on it of relevant conversations on it. These are conversations that occurred between, may I approach? That's just a summary. There's times on it noted. It'll need to be sealed because it does contain the grand jury proceeding. The total time of the tape is nearly 5 hours. The first 2 hours of it is interaction between Mr. Brooks Houck and his sister, where they talk about Brooks Houck shows her how to run the recorder, tells her he wants a tape of it. The question is why? This was in July. Miss Houck, Rosemary Houck, as well as Nicholas Houck testified on July 15, the same month of the murder of Crystal Houck. The sister was in 2016. The question is why? I think everyone in this courtroom knows why. To make sure everyone's story is consistent. As been stated before, the truth will set you free. The problem in this matter is the truth will imprison Brooks Houck.
Here to discuss trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. And Rich, Michael and I have been talking about how have they been taping it, what have they been taping, but I think that just made clear that they are literally taping when they are testifying to the grand jury, all secret, and that's what they tape so they can see that the statements are consistent, or rather the defendant allegedly has had this done so he can do that. And I agree, I mean, grand jury, it is secret for a reason. This is a huge issue.
Just think about it, though. Them dumbasses couldn't get their stories together. They couldn't sit at a dinner table together and say, I said this in front of the grand jury today. Well, I said this. They had to actually record it. Or did Brooks not trust them and said, hey, you guys better record this? Because that's weird that they could just be going in there to testify and they have their cell phone with them because they probably just maybe, I guess they didn't think to take it, like to check. What they do, just hit the record and then just slip it in their pocket? I mean, or I have like a recorder. I guess they could have a recorder. That is insanity. Like you would think that you, man, like, ma'am, what's in your pocket?
Absolutely. Very
And then they got caught. I wonder how they got caught.
big issue. You know, you can't mess around with grand jury or jury proceedings at all. And to go in there with a tape recorder as suspect, if these people really did it, I suspect they'll be prosecuted for that. And if the defendant arranged it, it's going to be an issue in his prosecution, and it should be.
And I'll tell you what, Rich, if in fact those transcripts are what they say they are, I don't think he's getting bail.
Yeah.
I think the whole bail argument goes out the window.
It all plays into this issue of safety. This is somebody who's trying to maybe align the evidence, mess with the evidence, potentially intimidate witnesses or jury members. You know, it definitely goes to the question of whether or not he should have bail.
Yeah, I don't think it's coincidental, Michael, that at the same time they're saying reduce this bail to $500,000, which clearly from what we understand of his assets, he'd be able to make bond at that point, that the state says, and by the way, Judge, we've got an issue with these grand jury proceedings because that will give a judge incentive to say, no, you don't, you're trying to mess with the system from inside. I'm not going to let you out. Compare this to the Murdaugh case, because we were talking about the similarities. It's a family in a smaller community with a lot of wealth and assets and allegations, at least, of being involved in murder.
Yeah, well, I think Judge, you just made the comparative points that he's well financed, he's well known in the community. That can present some difficulties in getting a jury that can decide it fair and impartially, or could believe he would do something like this. So, you know, it doesn't seem to be sort of as gruesome and out of the blue as the Murdaugh murders, And I don't know if it has as extensive a backstory as Murdoch does, but there are definitely some comparable factors.
I think as this trial comes about, we're going to find out a lot more, because there have been allegations about them messing around with the system throughout this case. And Brooks Houck, in his involvement and his connections, his brother Nick was fired for messing around with the investigation. So I think there's a lot to be learned as we move forward.
And now a gun allegedly connecting two different murders.
Okay, let me go ahead and get out a picture of Suzanne, because we're going to talk about her next. Actually, let me stop sharing that. We'll talk about this for a minute. So Brooks is going down pretty much, basically, yeah. He's taking his brother with him. I don't know. I don't know if they were all three in cahoots, him, Nick, and then the guy that's already been arrested, Joseph is his name. But they're only charging Joseph with conspiracy. So maybe he was involved in the planning. Maybe he was involved in the actual murder, but they're giving him a deal. Could be a deal so that they could get the bigger, fry the bigger fish. Is that the way you say it? I think so. Well, Heels, it's so good to see you. I'm glad you caught it live. So glad. On any good day, I can find a lighter. I was going to say something else I thought. Oh, yeah. Olivia, it might be something that we've already seen. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. If you can, send it to my email. It's titaniumbuiltboo@gmail.com. Because I want to make sure we haven't seen it, but I think it might be one we've watched, but I don't know. Because we did play the I Am Blank one that Nancy just did. That was a good one. That was a really good one. And then we just played one yesterday that they had on Fox Nation over the genealogy, and that was really good too. I always listen to Nancy's podcast, and then I watch the videos with you guys, because I'll listen to the podcast as I'm like doing grocery shopping or shopping at Target, whatever I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and put Suzanne up here because that's who we're going to talk about next. And I have a lot more to show you and more updates. I feel like longer updates to show you in the Suzanne Morphew case. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. And I will keep my, my ears peeled and my eyes open for any update on Crystal Rogers' case whatsoever. But he will be going to, for another court date for a little while. So as of right now, other than if the judge reduces his bond, which I don't see them reducing the bond. If they did reduce it, it would probably be down to $5 million, maybe. I don't see them really reducing that though. So Suzanne Morphew is going to be the next case that we're going to talk about. Beautiful Suzanne. She has been missing for 3.5 years. She's been missing since May 10th, 2020. At the time of her disappearance, allegedly, she was going on a bike ride. It was Mother's Day, and she lived in Colorado. On September 27th, 2023, so she went missing, never to be found, never to be heard from again. On September 27th, 2023, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation confirmed the remains of Suzanne had been found. Investigators have revealed that her body was found in Moffett, and I think it's called Saguash County, while they were probing a completely different, separate case. They were looking for actually a missing person, another missing person, and then came across her bones, I guess, scattered in this field. Now, I don't know if she was just placed there, and then over time, animals, the wind, I don't know. I don't know how, that really would work. Or if she was separated. I'm trying to use it, not a triggering word, but like, oh my Lordy, it's just, it breaks my heart. But I do have a timeline. So I did my own timeline on my first video, I believe we did, of Suzanne Morphew. I usually will put like a timeline together for you guys, but this little article, it had a timeline in it, and I thought it was really well written. It goes over it goes over everything. So let's see. I'm going to start actually right here where it says who is Suzanne. So who is Suzanne Morphew? So if you guys don't know about the case, I will get you guys all caught up here with the timeline. There's probably some things that are missing. This is a complex case, just like Crystal Rogers, but we're getting answers in this case as well. Hopefully there'll be an arrest soon. Suzanne Mormon, and Barry Morphew's love story started when they grew up in an all-American small town of Alexandria, Indiana, a community surrounded by farmland an hour northeast of Indianapolis. The relationship started on the golf course where he worked tending the greens during summers when he was home from college. She lived on the first tee and was still in high school. Morphew was a hometown sports hero who was drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. Suzanne, at 17, was the baby of the family, beautiful and shy. Her father, Gene Mormon, owned a popular root beer stand in a nearby town. Oh, I bet that's sweet. Though Gene died heartbroken in the fall of 2020 with the knowledge that his youngest child was missing, Gene's root beer and hot dogs in Anderson, Indiana is still run by the Morin family. During one of the 30 interviews, his attorney said Barry Morphew gave to law enforcement. He told deputies that Suzanne was his angel since she was 17. He was arrested and charged with murder in the case a year after she disappeared and then became a free man when the case against him was dismissed without prejudice in the spring of 2022. And dismissed without prejudice means that they can refile those charges at a later date if they decide they want to. Oh, really? You didn't know about it until her body was found? Yeah, we knew about it. I knew about this case right when it happened. This was another one I was following. And then there's just no updates. And then and there's another one too, Phoenix Coldren. I need to do a pre-recorded or a live over her. She's missing person. That one really gets in my feelings too. There's just something not right, when someone goes missing like that. 1994, Barry and Suzanne are married. They eventually have 2 daughters, Macy and Mallory. In 2018, the Morphews moved to Colorado from Indiana, hoping for a fresh start and to be closer to their oldest daughter. In May of that year, Suzanne's cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, returned. Macy in high school lived at home and Mallory was away at college. September 2018, Suzanne's best friend Sheila Oliver visited Colorado. Oliver was important to the case because Suzanne shared intimate details about her failing marriage over text and phone calls, which investigators later used to gain insight into her mindset during her last 2 years. Since Suzanne's cell phone is still missing, they found their conversations on Oliver's phone and through Morphew's iCloud account. Thanksgiving 2018, Suzanne visited Oliver in Indiana. February 2019, Suzanne Morphew and Jeff Libler, a high school friend, started talking over text. September 2019, Suzanne increasingly confided with Oliver about leaving her marriage to Barry. I sort of wish he would just get fed up with me and leave, she wrote of her husband. I told him I'm done. I need peace. Valentine's Day 2019, Suzanne Morphew and Jeff Libler's relationship became more than platonic. They met up in New Orleans while he was there for a conference. After that, they continued to connect over LinkedIn and WhatsApp and met in person several more times. Barry Morphew told investigators later that he did not know about the affair. Do you think he knew? I bet he knew. February 2nd, 2020, Suzanne and Oliver met up for a girls' Super Bowl weekend. February 4th, 2020. Now, if you were married, maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But if I were to tell Vincent that I was going to go meet up with my girlfriend for a Super Bowl weekend, he would be like, why don't you watch the Super Bowl with me? I like to watch Super Bowl. You know what I mean? You would think that you would be like, we're going to meet up and do like something like a girl thing. Because Barry looks like a man's man. He does. He looks like he would watch some football. I just feel like when you're married, I usually have girls time, but I'm just, not like a whole weekend where you're like, okay, I'm bye. Like, I think that right then he would have known that the marriage was over or it was getting there. Taking off, like they weren't even spending Mother's Day together. So February 4th, 2020, Suzanne talked with Sheila about getting out of her marriage. She never mentioned Libler, I think I'm saying it wrong, but Libler to anyone. Later, February 2020, Suzanne and Libler connected in Florida while she was visiting her father. May 6, 2020, 4 days before Suzanne Morphew was first reported missing. So this is at 10:17 a.m. This is the moment when Suzanne let Barry know their marriage was over. Text messages from Suzanne obtained from Barry's phone said, "I'm done. I could care what you've been up to for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." 3:51 p.m. Barry texts Suzanne, "I promise you are wrong about all the crazy thoughts about me. Only a fool would stray from an angel like you. When I'm dead, which won't be long, you guys will be taken care of." Thursday, May 7th. Like, why would you even say that? Like, when I'm dead, which won't be long. Like, okay, you know what I mean? I hate when people say stuff like that. Suzanne and Libler text a lot that day. Barry and Suzanne have pizza and look at houses around town. She described the evening to Libler later as a fine, quiet night. Friday, May 8th at 7:02 a.m. So this is the next day. Suzanne saved on her cell phone notes, applications, a list of grievances, which were her reasons to leave her marriage. One of those said that Barry accused her of having a boyfriend. Another said, "Act like I'm intruding in the garage," which an investigator had interviewed Barry later testified meant that he thought she had cameras in the garage. 9:28 a.m., Suzanne texted her sister Melinda about how hard it was dealing with the harsh abrasiveness and showing respect. Melinda told detectives later that she didn't know what to say. Sorry. Ever since I went to the dentist the other day, I feel like I'm losing my voice. 10 a.m., Suzanne and Barry had a series of phone calls, which ended when Barry texted, "I love you, Suzanne." Saturday, May 9th, it was in the morning. Suzanne texts Libler, "We need to be husband and wife," in one of the 59 text message exchanged between the two that day. Oh, okay. 11:30 a.m., Barry came home for lunch and left to change the blade on his Bobcat. Why do I feel like, why would she say that? Like, why would, I don't think Suzanne wrote that message that morning on May 9th. I don't know. Call me crazy, but we need to be husband and wife. I don't think that she would be wanting to get another husband right away. Like, she's not even divorced. She seems like a sensible woman. At 2:07 p.m., Suzanne sent a selfie to Libler, which could be just a picture on her phone. It is the last known moment that she was alive. 2:42 to 2:44 p.m. Like, did she ever talk like that before to him? I mean, that's out there. Barry returned home and his phone showed that he was moving around outside of the house. In his interview months later, he explained to prosecutors that he was shooting chipmunks. Yeah, I'm so glad we're going over this timeline. I like some of these things I actually forgot about because it's been so long. 6:40 to 6:48 p.m. Oliver told investigators she tried to reach Suzanne that day, sending 3 Snapchat messages between 6:40 and 6:48 with no luck. Because you have to take a picture and send it back, maybe. 9:24 to 9:52 p.m. Telematics showed that the doors of Barry Morphew's truck opened and closed over and over. 9:52 p.m. Telematics showed the gears went into reverse. The truck backed 96 feet into the edge of the driveway. Sometime that night, Suzanne's Facebook codes were reset and people started friending her there. She gained 23 total friends from Indiana, 20 of whom were men. I don't know. That sounds like guys trying to add a bunch of girls or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. So the selfie was taken earlier, but 2:07, but she just sent it to him. So that selfie that she took, she could have taken that selfie 3 years before. She could have taken that selfie 2 days before. You know what I mean? Like, I could take a picture right now on my phone just of me, hey, and just save it into my phone and never post it anywhere. I've got a bunch like that. He could have just gotten to her phone and sent it out, you know? Yeah, shooting chipmunks. I don't know who does the chipmunk thing. They're so small. I don't understand it. I understand hunting, but not chipmunks. Let's see. Where are we at? Okay. We're down here. Barry's phone. Okay, so 2:47 p.m. until 4:37 a.m. So the May 9th through May 10th, Barry's phone went into airplane mode. A setting on cell phones that prevents the device from sending or receiving calls and text messages. Agent Johnny Grusling told the court, I forgot about Johnny Grusling, told the court during the fall 2021 probable cause hearing that this was 6 hours we don't know what happened. Senior Deputy District Attorney Jeff Lindsay asked Grusling if this was enough time to dispose of a body. Yes, Grusling said he would have had 6 hours. That would be 3 hours round trip. It is an important point during probable cause hearings. Morphew's attorneys say there was no blood and no DNA in Morphew's truck, which never left the driveway, and that the ground was frozen. Somehow, in this airplane off time, Barry has means and time to dispose of a body. May 10th, 3:25 a.m. to 3:52 a.m., the doors on Morphew's truck were open and closed repeatedly. 4:23 a.m., Suzanne's phone pinged for the last time. The cell phone has never been found. 4:30 a.m., Barry told investigators he woke up. I would say that phone is probably in a lake or something, a river, reservoir, a mine, something like that. 5 a.m., Barry told police he left for Broomfield to fix a retaining wall for his landscaping company. He said he left Suzanne sleeping soundly in their bedroom. He was the last known person to see his wife alive. At 5:38 a.m., Barry text his mother, Happy Mother's Day. Where's Suzanne's text? 6:56 a.m., Barry was near Bailey on his way to Broomfield job. 8:41 a.m., Barry told police he tried texting Suzanne. Okay, here we go. Happy Mother's Day. And got no response, but added that this was not unusual because cell service was spotty around the Morphew home. 8:10 a.m., Morphew arrived in Broomfield, and soon after, surveillance cameras and truck data showed him throwing trash away at various places in Broomfield. That wasn't a good look, Barry. 8:35 a.m., surveillance video from a hotel showed Barry walk through the front doors. 8:41, Barry texted Suzanne that he made it to Broomfield and asked her to call when she got the chance. You up? Happy Mother's Day. I love you. 10:10 a.m., Barry left the hotel. During that morning, he visited a McDonald's and threw out something small, which he told police later was wrappers. He then visited a car wash and a men's warehouse store where he throws away more trash. He also visited the work site where he was to repair a retaining wall for around 20 minutes, but he didn't follow through because work was prohibited on Sundays. You didn't know that beforehand, Barry? 12:42 until 5:55 p.m., surveillance showed that Barry did not leave his hotel room. Relaxing. 3:30 p.m., Barry texted Suzanne to call him. 5:15 p.m., neighbor Jan Ritter called Barry to let him know Suzanne was missing. Her bicycle was gone, but her Range Rover was in the garage. Their daughters, Mallory and Macy, were on a road trip with one of Mallory's friends and were not getting responses to their Happy Mother's Day communications. At 5:38 p.m., District Attorney Investigator Alex Walker was informed that Suzanne is missing. As evening fell, deputies arrive at the Morphew home and discover Suzanne's bike with colorful pedals down a ravine near the home. The handlebars are twisted. 5:45 p.m., Morphew received a second call from Ritter. 6 p.m., Barry made several trips to his truck, bringing in tools. Around 6 p.m., Miles Harden, a friend of Macy's, is contacted by law enforcement. He drove around and looked for Suzanne with no luck. He told deputies that Suzanne had never gone up the trail where her bike was found because the gains are hard and it's crazy climb. 8:46 p.m., Barry arrived at home in his truck. He asked deputies if they saw any cats on the road, referring to mountain lions. They responded that they hadn't seen one recently. Already making excuses up, Monday, May 11th, investigators speak with Barry around 1 p.m. Suzanne was supposed to have a cancer treatment, but she did not show up for the appointment. Searchers were organizing to look for Suzanne Morphew. May 12th, investigators got a search warrant for Barry's truck. Search dogs were called in to do small tests on the vehicle. They found no blood inside or outside of the truck. May 13th, Suzanne's turquoise bike helmet was found undamaged, 0.84 miles from where they had found the bike and 10 meters off of the highway. Investigators suspected she never did take a bike ride. Her camelback and sunglasses, which her family said she always took with her when she rode, were in her Range Rover SUV still in the garage. You got the bike, you got the helmet, but you forgot the camelback and the sunnies. Gotta have them. Like, you just forgot all of it, Barry. May 15th, evidence response team of the Denver division of FBI was brought in to participate in ongoing efforts. May 19th and 20th, neck research geologist conducted ground penetrating radar survey and came up with nothing. July 8th, 2020, Colorado Bureau of Investigation investigators called Barry and invited him over for steaks. They ate dinner together and prayed for Suzanne. July 9th and 10th, Morphew and his daughters were told to leave the home while investigators searched. They found no blood inside. They found a tranquilizer dart cap in the dryer. Later, they theorized that Barry shot Suzanne with a tranquilizer to sedate her, an idea which his attorney refuted. November 2020, investigators learned about recordings on a spy pen that Suzanne bought and was using to try and catch Barry in an affair, and that it was Suzanne who was in a sexual or love relationship with a man named Jeff Libler. The two secretly met 6 times during a 1.5-year long relationship. November 13th, police spoke with Libler. He told law enforcement that he knew that no one knew about the relationship, including Suzanne Morphew's closest friends and family. I think Barry found out. I think he went through her phone. May 5th, 2021, Barry Morphew was arrested. Barry was charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and attempting to influence a public servant. Suzanne's body was not recovered, but Chaffee County Sheriff John Spezzi, I don't know if I'm saying that right, remarked, "Our belief is that Suzanne is not alive at this time." July 9th, 2021, a preliminary hearing where prosecutors presented evidence to a judge to determine if there's enough to stand or to send the case to trial began for Barry. His family attended each day, and his daughters Mallory and Macy sat in the rows behind their father in support of him. They communicated via eye contact and made heart hands with Barry. Their belief is his innocence was never wavered. September 20th, 2021, 11th Judicial District Chief Judge Patrick Murphy, that's a long title, ruled to let Barry out of jail on $500,000 cash-only bail. He walked out a couple of days later after posting the amount, flanked by his 2 daughters. Murphy also unsealed the arrest affidavit, which laid out the prosecution's case. December 2021, Judge Murphy, who has presided over the case, removed himself after defense attorneys complained about a conflict of interest. February 2022, the murder trial was moved from Chaffee County to Fremont County. In a statement, officials said the move was made because of the size of the community and the pervasive negative pre-trial publicity since Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. The court finds a fair trial cannot take place in Chaffee County. This is a high-profile case in a relatively small county with a small jury pool. The media saturation is high. Soon after, 11th Judicial District Judge Ramsey Lama took over. April 19th, 2022, less than 2 weeks before trial, Ramsey Lama granted a motion to dismiss filed by the prosecution in the murder case against Barry. The case was dropped without prejudice, meaning that the investigation could be revisited should new evidence surface. We got new evidence. May 2nd, 2023, Barry Morphew filed a $15 million. This is the best part when he files the lawsuit. He filed a $15 million civil lawsuit against several prosecutors, Chaffee County and Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI. The lawsuit stated that Morphew was seeking damages caused by the prosecutors, Chaffee County, and law enforcement officials. September 22nd, CBI investigators unearthed remains in a shallow grave near Moffett in Saginaw County. They were looking for remains of a missing woman named Edna Quintana, who disappeared May 3rd. So September 25th, 2023, the El Paso County coroner identified the remains found by CBI investigators as those of Suzanne 3 years and 4 months after she disappeared. September 29th, 2023, investigators ruled the disappearance of Edna Quintana and the disappearance of Suzanne as not related. CBI said that Quintana's disappearance remains as open and active investigation, so no further information is available at this time. Later in the day, law enforcement said the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the Chaffee County and Saginaw County Sheriff's offices have concluded their search in the area where Suzanne's remains were found. So later in the same day? Oh no. Okay, it wasn't the same day. But they really, yeah, they weren't in that area very long after they found her. Wow. Yeah, that was a lot. So I'm going to play you guys this newest video that came out over Suzanne. This came out on the 5th. So just yesterday. Okay, so yesterday. So we'll go ahead and we'll watch through this. This will get us all caught up. And I wanted to get that timeline out because that really gave us a full timeline of what was going on in the situation. I don't think she ever took a bike ride. Personally, I don't think she did. I think that Barry should have been held in jail, but I know that there was a lot of things that happened during the court proceedings that didn't allow that from even the prosecution side. So, but if you guys don't mind just hitting the like button, we'll go ahead and we'll start this video. I do appreciate you guys all being here. If you're just starting and just now joining us, we are talking about the Suzanne Morphew case. We just covered the Crystal Rogers side of the live. So if you guys were interested in that part, you guys could always rewind.
2020 in Chaffee County, Colorado, a beautiful part of the country with mountains, trees, nature, and beautiful homes like the one owned by Barry and Suzanne Morphew. Suzanne's 2 teenage daughters were on a camping trip and had plans to spend time with their mom later in the day. Meanwhile, Suzanne's husband Barry was also away. He left early in the morning for a business trip just north of Denver in Broomfield. But those plans for that nighttime Mother's Day celebration for the Morphew family never happened. That's because Suzanne was reported missing by a neighbor after no one was able to contact her. The search for Suzanne was immediate but unsuccessful. Then, as the months went by, suspicion grew around Barry. He was arrested and charged with her murder, and more details were revealed. A mysterious tranquilizer dart cap was found in the laundry. Barry was seen dumping trash bags all over Broomfield. And Suzanne's affair with an old friend was revealed. But then, just before his murder trial, prosecutors dropped the charges against Barry. And now the skeletal remains of Suzanne were found about 50 minutes south of Morphew's home. Barry's attorneys are now insisting this is proof of his innocence. Tonight, we will look at the timeline and the evidence as we continue our investigation of the murder of Suzanne Morphew.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments as we take a look at a case that, if you look at it right now, seemingly remains unsolved. Prosecutors did charge the husband. Then they dropped the charges. There were some legal problems prosecutors ran into. But if nobody's charged, what exactly is going on here? So let's begin with this latest development. And in a case where you have a missing person and they find that missing person's remains, that's usually great. But it seems so far, because of the timing and the place and everything else, even though they've got more evidence, prosecutors may actually have more problems with their case now. Believe it or not, I think it's possible. And the defense has been very aggressive along these lines. First, you've got Barry Morphew saying, don't look at me. Why are you looking at me? You know where you found the remains. There's other people that are missing down there. That's what you should be trying to figure out. Who's responsible for all these missing people in this part of Colorado? Why are you looking at me? Investigate those other cases. Try to figure it out. You know, it wasn't me. I was in the other direction. She was found south of my house. I went northeast. You know where I was that day. You've got me on video with trash bags. Don't look at me. Then you've got the fact that is true that when they found Suzanne Morphew, they were actually looking for someone else. So if investigators are in a certain place looking for someone else and they find Suzanne Morphew, well, could there be any connection between the other person they were looking for and who they actually found? You know, it's like, it's similar to what, not exactly the same, but it is similar to what happened in Gilgo Beach with the Long Island serial killer. They were looking for one woman and they found a whole bunch of other bodies. And they've tied those bodies together and we know what's happening in that case. And I think that's what the defense is saying and why they're saying, well, wait a minute, you guys were looking for someone else. You're not looking for Barry Morphew and some sort of domestic violence situation, jealous rage, whatever. We're looking at a serial killer here. That's what they want everyone to believe. And I think when we sit here tonight, we're still thinking, like, who did it? Like, who did it? Like, from my perspective, yes, there's evidence. It's a circumstantial case. Most circumstantial evidence can be great. Sometimes it's better than direct evidence. Direct evidence is like eyewitness testimony, which we know is so unreliable, right? You have three people that can witness a crime, and they will give you three different accounts about what happened. But circumstantial evidence, good circumstantial evidence like DNA and things like that can help prove the case very well. And that's what they're working with here. But where I'm sitting, until I see and hear the evidence inside a courtroom and cross-examine, I'm still wondering who did it here. I'm still wondering who did it, and that's what I want to kind of take a look at here. So Matt Johnson, a Court TV crime and justice correspondent, takes a look at everything that has happened relative to the disappearance and murder of Suzanne Morphew.
Where is it? Where's the bike? Oh, it's right there. Where was it? It was like just right down here in this little embankment.
8:46 p.m. Sunday, May 10th, 2020. 53-year-old Barry Morphew arrives at the scene where his wife, Suzanne Morphew's bike and helmet were found about a mile from their house by police. It was Mother's Day, but her daughters were away on a camping trip, and Barry told police that he had spent the day working on a job north of Denver in Broomfield, Colorado.
Just a confirmation, you left this morning at 5. Okay. And she told you she was going to go bike riding? Bikes every day.
At around 5 p.m., a neighbor called 911 after checking Suzanne's house and telling Barry she couldn't contact her friend.
So the last time you probably actually saw her was this morning. That was it, right?
Yeah, I've been in Briscoe. I got a big job up there. I've been here all day.
Barry owned a landscaping business, and Suzanne was a stay-at-home mother who was being treated for cancer. The couple lived in Maysville, Colorado, about 2.5 hours southwest of Denver.
Is it a crash? I mean, the bike looked, the way it was laid, it kind of looked like it, but there's not really that much damage to the bike. That's the thing.
Lion?
Yeah, it was a lion.
No, a lion?
I didn't see anything that was...
Suzanne's disappearance quickly became a missing persons case. Her brother helped organize and lead searches for her with no success.
Unfortunately, every time the dogs hit on a scent, it seems to be close to or around one of his properties. What that might indicate is that scent was on his Bobcat, and everywhere he used it, we're running into it.
Barry didn't participate in those searches, but he did post a plea for Suzanne's return on YouTube.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back.
On May 5th, 2021, almost a year after she vanished, Suzanne's husband Barry was arrested and charged with her murder.
The investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found, and we're still looking into that.
According to the arrest affidavit, the Morphew's marriage was falling apart. She was having an affair and believed that he was cheating too. The week before she disappeared, she texted him that she was done with him, and they had to resolve their situation civilly. They also had a history of fights over money, and he was pressuring Suzanne to loan him thousands of dollars. But in the spring of 2022, Days before his scheduled trial, prosecutors dropped Barry's charges without prejudice. The judge had thrown out the potential testimony of several key witnesses because of alleged discovery violations. And without Suzanne's body, prosecutors said they could not move forward with the trial.
Barry and his daughters are relieved, but they're sad because they too want to know where Suzanne Morphew is.
In May 2023, a year after the charges were dismissed, Barry Morphew filed a $15 million suit against the investigators into his wife's disappearance and the district attorney in the case. He and his daughters sat down with Good Morning America to discuss the possibility of future charges.
Well, I was innocent the first time they arrested me, so I'm sure it's possible. But I don't have anything to worry about. I've done nothing wrong.
More than 3 years after Suzanne Morphew went missing, investigators found her remains in a shallow grave. Police discovered her while investigating an unrelated missing persons case. The site, a desert field of sagebrush near Moffett, a town 45 miles south of Suzanne and Barry's home in Maysville, not part of the original search locations. Barry Morphew's attorney said that he and his daughters were shocked by the news of her discovery and point to the fact that there is no GPS or cell phone evidence that places Barry near Moffett the weekend Suzanne disappeared.
We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover tonight. Great guest joining us. Joining me from Denver, Colorado, reporter for the Denver Gazette. Knows everything about this case, Carol McKinley. In Jacksonville, Alabama, forensic death investigator, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, and host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. And in Pensacola, Florida, private investigator Lauren Vellucci. All right, welcome everyone. Can we start here? And what we heard in that last little piece from Matt was where the defense was saying, there's no GPS, there's no cell phone evidence that puts Barry Morphew in the area where the remains were found. The only way he could have done it, Carol, am I right, based upon what the evidence is he would have had to have been there the day before, right? On the 9th, not on the 10th, because the 10th he's accounted for, right? That's when he heads out to Broomfield, which is in the other direction.
That's right. There was a time that he put his phone in airplane mode, and that was between 10 o'clock at night and 4 o'clock in the morning from the 9th until the 10th.
Wait, time out. Airplane mode. Airplane, what?
Yeah. But he put his phone in airplane mode for about 6 hours the night before he went to Broomfield. And so there's been a lot of talk about that because during the preliminary hearing, the FBI agent in charge, whose name is Johnny Grusing, said 6 hours is a long time. You can do a lot in 6 hours. However, his truck was still in the driveway that night. So really, between the GPS and the cell phone records, you have to look at both. And the fact that the truck never left the driveway, the truck didn't leave. The cell phone might have. The next day, the truck wasn't down there and the cell phone wasn't down there. So there was a 6 hour period where no one knows where the cell phone was. However, the truck, even though the doors were opening at 3 a.m., opening and closing, stayed in the driveway. That doesn't mean Barry stayed in the driveway, but his truck was there.
His truck was there.
So, the more information you hear, the more confused you get.
Yes, but
in this case,
airplane mode.
Yes.
To me, Joseph Scott Morgan, and I'm just going by myself, the only time I put it on airplane mode is when I'm on an airplane. I don't know. I don't know why you would put it on airplane mode when you're on an airplane. 6 hours. That to me, that is really strange. It's like Jodi Arias years ago when she was driving from Northern California to Arizona to murder Travis Alexander. And it came out in trial, and the jury loved that evidence. The fact that the phone is on and then it's off and then it's turned back on, and in that window it was possible. What does your gut tell you about that little fact. What would you do to try to figure out if that's just an innocent thing that he did versus purposeful conduct?
I was, but I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I went through the various sequences you have to go through in order to get to airplane mode. And yeah, it's kind of a pull down. I'm an Android guy, so forgive me. It's kind of a pull down, and then you click on it, but it's something that you have to actively do. It's not necessarily something that you're just it's going to passively happen. And in court, you know, this can be powerful information in the hands of a digital investigator, where if you look back in time at his activity on the phone, and again, this is circumstantial, but you know, you look through it and you say, well, how many times in the past has this individual placed that phone on airplane mode over this period of time? And then you begin to think about this period of time in which Suzanne Morphew has gone missing. And, you know, you try to correlate that with the understanding that maybe perhaps he has never placed it on airplane mode, but at that particular time, the phone happens to go on there. And just like our colleague said just a second ago, just because the truck was in the driveway doesn't necessarily mean that anyone else was there or that the phone was necessarily there, because you can't track it on airplane mode. So it's an interesting bit of information, and it's going to require a bit more pressure, I think, and shoe leather on the part of the police.
Absolutely. Okay. Let me ask you, Carol, about this. And to me, this is significant. What's the last proof of life that we have of Suzanne Morphew? Is it the selfie bikini shot that she took and then sent to her boyfriend?
The last time that we know she was alive is the picture she took at 2:07 and sent to her boyfriend on Saturday, May 9th. She was reported missing on Sunday, Mother's Day, the next day at 5 p.m.
I'm just going to say it. Just because you send a picture doesn't mean that you took that selfie right then and there. Unless it was a Snapchat or something, and like there's a timestamp. I don't know. That's just, no, you would have to just, no, there's no way. Because he could send it. You could take a picture, a selfie, like a bikini selfie by the pool last year. You know, I just don't get it.
So you've got 2:07 until 5 o'clock the next day that we don't know what happened to her. So she really didn't look at her phone. There was a ping at 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning. That was the last ping. There were a couple of like little ghost pings that no one can explain through the night. But after 2:07, she did not look at her cell phone, which is weird because her best friend sent her some video images at about 6 that night, and she never opened them. It turns out her best friend's daughter got married that day, and it's something that Suzanne was really looking forward to, the wedding of her best friend's daughter. She never looked at the phone to check out the messages on Snapchat sent by her best friend, which were sent at 6 o'clock, 4 hours after we last know she was alive, because we saw that picture of her alive, right, that she sent to her boyfriend.
Yeah, Lauren, I think that's a significant part here too, trying to put together a timeline, right? I mean, you're first of all, Mother's Day is the next day. You're not checking your phone. You're going to go on a bike ride. You're not checking your phone or the weather or anything else. You're not doing anything. I don't understand why you would just stop using your cell phone at 2 o'clock on Saturday and then never use it again, even though you allegedly went to bed, were sleeping, woke up, and went for this bike ride.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because it's probably, you know, when she was murdered in that time frame. And that's the first thing that we have to figure out is a timeline on these cases. It's the biggest thing. It's where we start. And there's just so many odd facts in this case. Who has tranquilizer darts, you know, hanging around in their house? It's just a very puzzling case. And there's a lot of pieces to it. And it's
I think we're having some trouble with Lauren's signal right now, so we'll check on that in a sec. Joseph Scott Morgan, I look at this case, and it's not going to be easy. What are your thoughts with the location of where the remains are found? And it's years later. I don't think you'll be able to get much information from these remains. To me, it almost complicates the case here.
Yeah, it does. But, there's a lot that we can learn from this location. First off, who in Suzanne's circle, and remember, they didn't have a huge circle there in Colorado, who would have knowledge of this specific location that would also have enough anger to take her out there. And remember, they've used the term shallow grave. Then a shallow grave implies that's an action phrase, because a grave, in order to be shallow, can only be dug to a certain depth. That implies to me a certain pace, rapid, and the soil out here is very, very compact. Did the individual that created the shallow grave not show up with the appropriate tools? In order to dig into this type of dirt out there, you would need to show up with certainly a pickaxe, perhaps, if you're going to go deep, and obviously a shovel. How defined were these margins that were out here? And one of the things that's troubling to me, I think, is that not only did they use the term shallow grave, but correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to. One of the initial reports that came out, I heard the term 75-yard radius relative to disbursement of remains. So that means that this is disturbed ground, that something has come into this environment and has dispersed the remains. But what's important here, I think, is the fact that there was a very quick ID then. You're going to have, I think, at least a partial skull because they were able to do a dental identification on Suzanne's remains very quickly. And that's going to play into this. Of course, I would imagine that when this case first occurred, one of the first things that they went looking for when they realized that this was not going to turn out well is they had already subpoenaed those dental remains. They had them sitting. They were there in standby. Somebody was holding on to these things because you don't get a turnaround quite that quickly. Right now, I think that we're still waiting for more information to come in. But if you have animals that have come to this grave to disperse the remains are not going to be in a pristine shape, man. So soft tissue damage is not going to be that appreciable over a 3-year period, particularly if you have scavengers that are out there. The one hope I would have, I think, if you're trying to determine a cause of death, is going to be some type of impact trauma, perhaps to the skull, where either a skull fracture or perhaps some type of gunplay that has been involved. Other than that, I think that you're really going to be grasping at straws. I think the biggest question I've had asked of me, Ben, and it always happens with cases like this.
I think they would be able to decipher if it was a bite or a stab wound as well. If it hit nicked bone, you could tell it probably was a stab wound compared to like a bite mark.
This is, will they find the hyoid? When you have fragile remains like this, the hyoid bone high up in the neck is one of the first things that disappear. I always teach my students, the smaller the bone in the body, the less likelihood there is of recovery of it. We're talking about small bones of the hands and the feet, certainly vertebral bodies in many cases, but particularly like the hyoid bone. It's that one unarticulated bone in the body. It disappears pretty quickly.
All right, Joseph Scott Morgan, Carol McKinley, Lauren Vellucci staying with us for the whole hour. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the DNA that was left behind, was discovered in this case. Who does it help? What does it tell us? Plus, coming up next hour.
In Palm Beach County, Florida, the trial everyone is talking about, the boy in the box.
It was weird because it feels like the top of the bike was like up this way.
So maybe flipped.
Maybe, I don't know, man.
But the problem is,
Go ahead.
what's the thing about 4 o'clock in the morning? Was that somebody on the phone?
5 o'clock. Oh, yeah, so we pinged the phone and it said the last activity was at 4 in the morning.
Up here?
It's off of the Ponzi Tower. So there's not any specific order. Hey, could you not touch the bike with your hands, please?
Hey, guys.
That's the house.
A couple interesting things in that body cam video that we just saw there. One, talking about the 4 o'clock ping on the phone of Suzanne Morphew. And then you've got Barry Morphew's at the scene and they're trying to tell him, hey, don't touch the bike. Put your hands on the bike. It's not a good idea. Okay. Let me put this up on the screen because this is extremely significant. I know this is significant. I'm a former prosecutor. I know how much damage this can do to a prosecutor's case if you are charging Barry Morphew in this case. All right, take a look. In the summer of 2020, CBI forensic analysis determined foreign unknown male DNA was found on various items of the crime scene: the interior cushion of the bike helmet, Mrs. Morphew's bike, the glove box, and back seat of Mrs. Morphew's Range Rover. Mr. Morphew, along with other investigative personnel working the scene, were excluded as the source of the sample. Communication logs with the Forensic Lab Division of CBI indicated that Agent Cahill had come to believe the DNA sample found in Mrs. Morphew's car belonged to suspects who may have perpetrated the crime. On May 19th, 2021, Agent Cahill, among other law enforcement personnel, received a CODIS match letter indicating the unknown male DNA partially matched DNA found in 3 out-of-state unsolved sexual assault investigations in Tempe, in Phoenix, and Chicago. That's huge, right? That's huge. That is a problem. That, to me, you put that in a courtroom with a jury. Like, this is what reasonable doubt looks like. All right, let's bring back in our guests, Carol McKinley, Joseph Scott Morgan, Lauren Vellucci. And Lauren's on phone with us right now. So Carol, can you just kind of clarify for us a little bit this DNA? Or is it clear that what's found on the helmet and the bike, is that the same DNA profile as what's found inside her car? Or is the car different than the DNA profile on the helmet and on the bike?
That's a very important question, and it is different. The glove box DNA was the most important, and they sent it in, and they found a suspect. I guess you could call the person a suspect in Arizona, north of Phoenix, in a place called Prescott. You might have heard of it. My parents used to live there, so I really paid attention. But that person was eliminated from being in Colorado at the time, either through an alibi or I don't know what. Anyway, I was told that that person could not have committed the crime because he was not in Colorado on May 9th or May 10th. So the DNA really was a dead end. And I think they were going to be able to explain that in court.
And Joseph Scott Morgan, you've got DNA unknown on the helmet. You've got DNA on the bike. They tracked down this, I guess, previously unknown DNA that was on the glove box. And it's a sexual, I mean, how did it get in the glove box anyway? I mean, that part has to be explained too. Like, let me ask Carol one more time. Any answers to that question? If this person's in Arizona, no. How that person's DNA ends up on her glove box? No explanation.
There were people who said maybe it was someone who worked on the car, you know, maybe, I mean, there were people who put suppositions out there, but if that person had an alibi and there's a second witness that says, yes, this person was with me, that person could not have committed this crime.
Interesting. All right, Joseph Scott Morgan, what are your thoughts about the DNA in this case?
The fact that you've got a CODIS hit, and so folks understand, CODIS has two different categories. You have what has traditionally been, categorized as known suspects, those individuals that have either been positively identified from, say, for instance, a sexual assault at a scene, or that you have taken sample from with like a buccal mucosal swab for those individuals that are within the system that are required to give up a sample. Then you have this other group, which has traditionally been known as the forensic category, and those that are unidentified. The fact, then, that if what I'm hearing is correct, that you've got an individual with disassociated DNA that is associated with a sex crime is significant. I mean, you can't look past that. You have to understand that that this is the odds of this happening and not be associated with her disappearance, I think, are tough to kind of explain away. I would imagine the defense, if this were to go to trial, would make quite a bit of hay with that. As an investigator, I think, we go back to this idea of living kind of in isolation out in this area. Who knows her, who knows him, and who is in their circle? Barry Morphew worked with people. Hopefully they've run through that group of people to get DNA from them, because they might know, what his house looks like, how it's laid out, that he had a wife, that maybe, she liked to go out of the house every now and then. They may have known that he was going to be outside of the house. So all of that stuff has to be explored, and questions have to be asked and answered.
Lauren Vellucci, are you bothered by the unknown DNA on the helmet and on the bicycle?
That part, yes. That makes me wonder if he had some help with getting her off of that bicycle, if in fact she was taking a stroll at a very odd time to be doing so. So yeah, I'm a little bothered by that as well.
Carol McKinley, is it true that on the morning that he's going to Broomfield, that he first heads in one direction near where the helmet was found, then kind of turns around and heads to Broomfield?
That is true. He took a left instead of a right. So when he came out of his driveway and off of the dirt road to get onto this 2-lane highway, he normally would take a right to get to Broomfield. He took a left instead and drove up to maybe, I forgot how far, a couple miles maybe, to a mine and turned around. And then he went to Broomfield. And his explanation was that he thought he saw some elk, and he's a hunter, and he wanted to see where they were traveling. So it turns out that the helmet is found on that road where he went to the left. There's also a time where he went to a trash receptacle at a gas station early on. And some of the belief from investigators was that he put the helmet there first and then threw it later, and that he might have gone to the left to just find out if there was a place he could throw it from his car or throw it from the side of the road. None of us know this. This is speculation. But yes, it was a strange U-turn that he made early in the morning, 5 o'clock on a Sunday, on Mother's Day.
Yeah, that's Joseph Scott Morgan. That doesn't sit well with me either, right? And if you're trying to put this together as a prosecutor telling a story to a jury, the story is going to be the murder happens on the 9th. He has to somehow, some way get rid of the body. And then before he heads to his alibi, he's trying to get rid of the evidence. But, there's no reason if you're going to Broomfield to drive 2 miles in that other direction. There's no reason. And that's where the helmet is found. So that makes it look like maybe she was abducted in one place and taken somewhere else from her bike. But at the end of the day, if he's there, he's put himself in a place where evidence is recovered that is inconsistent with waking up and heading to Broomfield first thing in the morning.
Yeah, it is. And if you've got some electronic breadcrumbs, I think that would be, and in a hypothetical, that would be a difficult hurdle to go over for any defense team, I think, and that would have to be explained away. But as we know, when you look at electronic evidence, perhaps those types of things can be explained in a couple of different ways. And that happens in all forensic evidence, depending upon what kind of team you have. For me, the gravesite itself I'm hoping will be bountiful relative to what they're going to be able to find and determine. Another piece to this, I think, that I'm very interested in knowing, and of course we don't have all of the information, we might not for some time, is that we've talked about the body and I talked about some of the elements, but I'm interested if there was any clothing left behind, anything whatsoever. And I'm thinking synthetic fibers as opposed to anything, say a natural blend like a wool or maybe a cotton fiber or something that's going to be resilient out there in that harsh environment. And also, we don't know if the body had been cocooned, because even though you bury a body, it doesn't mean, and it's wrapped, it doesn't mean that critters can't get to it.
Electronic breadcrumbs. I'm going to use that. That is a great way to describe it. All right, guests are staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other missing women that are missing people pointed out by the defense. Because we know what they'd be alluding to is, hey, there's someone out there. And maybe Suzanne was a victim of this person, this killer who's on the loose in Colorado. We'll be right back.
On Mother's Day, they called me and said she'd gone for a bicycle ride and didn't return. I flew out the next morning, and they had found her bicycle. That no, Suzanne?
I don't think she went for a bike ride. I mean, without the cell phone, without checking the cell phone for all those hours, to me, that doesn't necessarily add up to me at all. Now, let's take a look at a statement from Barry Morphew's attorney. They've been very aggressive in this case in getting their story out there, or alternative stories as to what could have happened to Suzanne. Here's what they say. It was the Saguache County officials that fortunately stumbled onto Suzanne's remains last week while looking for another missing woman, Edna Quintana. What needs to be done, instead of pointing fingers at Barry Morphew, is asking the officials about the number of missing people and number of human remains that have been recovered in or from Saguache County in the recent past. Whatever happened to Crystal Reisinger, Edna Quintana, Suzanne, the man whose remains were found by Saguache County Sheriff's Office in the foothills on July 26, 2023, or the remains of the person found in another area of Saguache County last weekend? What were the circumstances of their disappearances? What is the cause and manner of death of the remains in that area? What happened to them? Are they looking for other remains in this area? So let me give you a little more information. Edna Quintana is a 55-year-old white female, last seen on May 3rd, 2023, in the area of Saguache County. There she is. That's who they were actually looking for when they found Suzanne. And now we've got a map. This is based on some reporting from KRDO. You've got Saguache County, Colorado. Police were searching the county for Edna Quintana, which led to the discovery of two different bodies. In Moffett, Colorado, Suzanne Morphew's remains were found along the side of Highway 17 south of Moffett. And then James Montoya, during another search for Edna Quintana in July, investigators found James Montoya's body in the foothills west of Saguache Peak off of County Road 46AA. And who is James Montoya? 26-year-old from Lakewood, Colorado, last seen 2:30 a.m. April 2nd at a bar in Lakewood. And his body was found in July. Crystal Reisinger disappeared in 2016. That's another case, a little bit older than all of these. Let's bring back in our guests, Carol McKinley, Joseph Scott Morgan, Lauren Vellucci joining us by a phone right now. So, Carol, have those questions been asked? Have they been answered? What's the buzz out there in Colorado when it comes to these bodies, these recoveries, and missing people?
Well, here's the bizarre thing. Edna Quintana went missing last May 3rd, as you said. And the Colorado Bureau of Investigation was looking for her remains when they found James Montoya's remains and Suzanne Morphew's remains. They've never found Edna's remains. All right, let's keep going here. James Montoya, I went to a press conference with his parents this week, which was held in Denver because he's a Denver man. He's from Lakewood, a suburb of Denver. He was killed probably up here during a fight. They're looking for a suspect. They've got the name. They've got an APB out for him. This guy who they think killed James Montana, put him in a car, drove him down to Saguache County, which is 3,000 square feet, by the way. And now they believe he's in Alamosa, Colorado. So police believe they have their suspect for James Montana. He's eliminated. Edna Quintana, her remains are still missing. Crystal Reisinger, her remains are still missing. She was a woman who from Denver went down to Crestone, Colorado because she wanted to find herself. She was a spiritual person. Crestone has, I forgot how many religions down there, but it's the most per capita of anywhere in the country. It's a very, like a very spiritual, eclectic place. So sure, Crystal Reisinger, 2016, 5 years before Suzanne's body's found. No, would that be 7 years? Yeah. So she goes missing in 2016. Suzanne goes missing in 2020. So that's 4 years. Excuse my math. And then Suzanne's remains are found 3 years later. That's a long time. So I talked to an investigative source today, and I said, "What about Crystal Reisinger? We know James Montana is not connected to Suzanne Morphew. We're pretty sure Edna Quintana is not connected to Suzanne Morphew. She's not the profile. She's older. She was last seen walking in Saguache. It might have been a crime-related, druggie-related death. Reisinger is still a question. The investigator told me today, we do not know of any connection. We're not ruling it out, but we don't know. So that's what I know about those three. As far as the other missing person who the remains were found like last weekend or the weekend before, which Barry Morphew's attorney said they found, I have not heard anything about that. I don't know whose remains of those are, where they were found, or if they were even found. But yes, I mean, that kind of thing where you've got alternate suspects. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean,
we can look at it here and say, they're not related. You get inside a courtroom, everything becomes a little bit smaller. Lauren Vellucci, anything strike you that makes you think that there's a killer out there in Colorado going after all these folks?
No, and that's the thing, Benny. Anytime you have such a vast, desolate area like that, the sad truth is there's going to be other bodies there. If you remember, like a year ago when Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie's case was big and they were at the Myakkahatchee State Park, they found at least 6 additional bodies that were missing in that location. So, that's just the sad truth. We have so many missing people in this country and they're being put someplace. And unfortunately, it is places like this. So I don't personally think that any of these cases are connected. Crystal's case, she had horrible things done to her 2 weeks prior to her going missing. And then she just magically disappears in a town of less than 150 people. And she pointed the fingers and was ready to tell who had actually hurt her. So no, I don't think they're related in any capacity.
That was the end of it, but I don't know why it cut off like that. I hate when they cut them off like that. I think it's because they kept adding to that one. So that was the only thing that I had, though, for Suzanne, an update for her case. I'm assuming they're going to arrest Barry after they get, they got to cross their T's, dot their I's perfect with this one, because when they had him in court the last time, there was a lot of stuff that was getting messed up in court. They weren't like the prosecutors, I guess, wasn't giving the defense attorneys like discovery and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure. This my dog, she's going to come in here looking for me, I thought. But so the poll. Okay, so I did the poll tonight because I wanted to see if you guys knew who Quentin Simon was. He was a little boy. It was one of my first, I think my second case that I ever covered on this channel. 2 years old. He went missing out of Chatham County. Chatham County is Georgia. His mother reported him missing that morning. As soon as I heard the story, we all knew something was weird. YouTube broke. When this little boy went missing, YouTube broke. You had creators standing in front of Quentin's mom's and grandmother's house, just screaming obscenities and filming it live for our pleasure, because I streamed a lot of that. It was hilarious, to say the least. They had the cops called 30 different times within 30 days because of it was off the chain case. So yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, because I don't have, today's the 6th, right? Okay. I knew it was the 5th. So on the 5th, it marked his 1 year since he was killed by his mother. His mother, Leilani, is in jail for it right now. But it's just one of those cases. I feel like I need to retell it and bring it more justice, because she's getting ready to go back to court for it anyway. And then it'll get us there. So she dumped her little baby in a dumpster. These cops were not deterred. They just weren't. They sifted through 1.2 million pounds of trash looking for that baby for 6 weeks. And they found that baby. I could not believe my heart when I heard that. I cried so hard. That's another case. Like, that was probably one of the bigger ones. You know how some cases are just bigger because of the fact of the sheer volume of people, not the fact that it's bigger or than any other case. But you just have those cases that just pick up that momentum. And so and there's just so many details. I mean, I'm going to go back through. I think I'm going to play. We might have to play some of my old lives. The sound might not be the greatest because I have that microphone back there. I don't think I had it close enough to my mouth, but it was pretty entertaining when Bullhorn Betty and them were all out there. And then someone else sent someone down there to confront Bullhorn Betty. It was just YouTube creators were going after creators. I mean, but if it wasn't because of this little boy missing, I think that if this case wouldn't have got that much attention, then maybe he wouldn't have been found. I think that everything happened in that case for a reason. Yeah, the mom and daughter went to the bar. Yeah, Billy Joe and Leilani went to the bar while they're looking through the trash. Oh my! It was a crazy one. So I wanted to do that poll because I was like, I'm curious to see if you guys would know about it, because it's a year now, and we're coming up on a year on the channel. So we just passed a year in September, so August, September, something like that. So I don't know if you can hear the claws in the background, but that's my dog playing with the cat. I don't know if you can hear it. It's so funny. Yeah, the cops put the signs to keep the creators off the yard doodle. I forgot about that. And our brother's in jail too. Yeah, I think he is. He's in jail for murder. Yeah, he is. So Leilani and her brother are both in jail for the M. And Billy Joe is, I don't know where she's at. I haven't seen her on the platform. That's good. But it was one of those cases that it shook me when I read the millions of pounds of trash that they went through. It really got into my head. And it was summer, going off of summer. So October is you know what I mean? You're coming into fall, but you're still in Georgia. So it's still hot and gross and ugh. You're not wearing jackets yet. You're still, got the sweatshirts, something like I'm wearing, long sleeve on, still pretty warm down there. So they do. Well, they, blasting kids' music from open windows. They were, yeah. And then remember the person went up and tapped on their window? Yep. Ellie, yep. Broke down crying, yep. Yeah. And it was one of those cases that really shook the community. We might have to do that on Sunday, or maybe we'll do it next week where I can get all my notes together. I have like a little book with his name in there. I know I still have all my notes. I should see. Because this was one of my first books that I got for the for notes for the channel. I don't print my notes anymore. There it is, Clinton Simon. It looks like the last thing that we did over it was the news release. Oh, I have her paperwork. Like, yeah, I must not have. I don't think I really took notes back then. He was so cute. He was. I know. He was so cute. So I'm glad that some of you guys have heard about that case. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do some stuff on that. If you guys want to go back, you can watch my old videos on it. I was just new, and my pre-recorders were pretty good because like I used to edit them a little more, not like edit them, but I would just put them in iMovie and put them together. But it was better. Like, I don't know, now I never edit anything. Like I just one take. I'm a one take person. But I am going to start doing pre-recordeds more whenever I learn how to move this camera stand to here and do the lighting. That's the only problem. Vincent has it all set up for me so good, and I don't want to mess it up. But I'm going to jump off of here. I'd play the mom yelling at the babysitter. Oh gosh, man, you guys you remember the case? You're making me go back. Remember when what's his name? Dolly went to jail because he smacked the girl. He smacked the lady that. Oh my god, like it was so bad. And then they all went down. They were going to go to the courthouse and they were going to like picket or something. Oh my lordy, man. That poor baby. And you know what? I will give you a little Leilani Simon update. She graduated high school. I guess she got her GED in prison. So I'm glad that she's allowed to live her life. That woman. But But thank you guys for being here tonight. Mia says thank you for being here tonight. She's been moving around all night. She actually came up here earlier and she looked at me and I just gave her a look like, you better go sit down. And she just turned around and went and sat back down. It was really cute. I know she has nowhere to be because we just took her out right before my live. So I've been on here 2 hours. She's so funny. But thank you guys for being here. I'll be back tomorrow, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will see you guys all for tomorrow's live. Have a good evening and have a good weekend. Bye, guys.